Hi, I'm Dr. Watt, the Healthy Neurosurgeon. I'd like to talk to you about salt. The American Heart Association are certainly well-meaning folks, but unfortunately, they're not always right. And they've been pushing us for a long time to adopt a low-salt diet. This is coming from the belief that salt in the diet leads to water retention, which leads to increased blood volume, which leads to increased blood pressure. That's a great sounding model. The problem is the facts don't back it up. There's just no good research that shows that increased salt in your diet raises your blood pressure, or that lowering salt in your diet significantly lowers your blood pressure. If that weren't bad enough, recently they've recommended that Americans slash their salt intake down to 1,500 milligrams a day. That's about 3/4 of a teaspoon. The problem is that multiple very believable studies published in very prestigious journals like The Lancet have shown that when you slash salt intake down to those levels, instead of lowering blood pressure, what happens is the body shows an increase in excretion of certain hormones, renin, angiotensin, aldosterone. And what these hormones do is actually raise your blood pressure. Furthermore, it shows quite clearly that this increases your risk of heart attack, stroke, and even death. Yeah, you heard me right. Seriously restricting salt intake increases risk of death. Completely backwards from what they were hoping. We see worldwide across cultures that if people are allowed ad lib use of salt, in other words, you get to use as much or as little as you want, most folks will consume around 3,500 milligrams a day. That's a teaspoon and a quarter roughly. And there's no scientific evidence of any kind that salt consumption in that range has the least bit of harm to your health. So don't go crazy and start munching on a salt lick, but severely restricting your salt intake is probably just going to backfire on you. Now, I'm not a big fan of processed foods, and that includes processed table salt. The average table salt has been cooked and bleached, and there's nothing in it but sodium and chloride. And real salt, like we'd get from the ocean, has lots of trace minerals. As a matter of fact, sea salt can have up to 50 different trace minerals, most of which are very beneficial for your body. And don't forget to be a label reader. There's at least one brand of salt maker out there. I won't name names, but remember, when it rains, it pours. They put dextrose in their salt. That's right, they sugar it. I guess they thought maybe you weren't going to use enough of their salt, so they'd sugar it up so you'd use a little more still. So even with something like salt, read the label. But my recommendation is go with sea salt, or another alternative would be Himalayan pink salt. The nice thing about the Himalayan salt is it comes from very old salt beds, so the chance of pollution or contaminants in it is smaller, and it still has all the nice trace minerals. That's why it has the pink color in the first place. So if you just have to worry about something, go back to worrying about your sugar intake, but lighten up at worrying about salt. It's actually not going to hurt you. It's not brain surgery.